This is Find Your Flow, a show about navigating the complexities of life and business through the lens of curiosity. I'm your host, Angelique, and I bring together experts to deliver responsibly curated conversations and perspectives that aim to progress people and the planet. So, very special guest today, Gregg Gerdau, and he is a serial entrepreneur, a high technology executive and management advisor, and I am very much summing up a lot of what he does and all of the amazing roles that he's had throughout his career. But today, I also want to focus on his newest mastermind and leadership community, Spirit Drivers. So, Gregg, I want you to go into a little bit more about yourself and the incredible career and experience that you've had. Let's start there.
Well, I've been very fortunate to have a great long career, and it's been pretty diverse. I started my first company when I was 14 years old, and I ended up working for Goldman Sachs for over 11 years.
Just a small company.
Just a small company. I worked for another large financial services company for a number of years. And then I went back to working with smaller companies, startups, and venture capital. It's one of the great joys of my life to work with companies that are beginning and starting. And it also gave me the opportunity to help the people that were beginning and starting companies. So that's roughly how we got to Spirit Drivers.
I love it. And I've been very lucky to be a part of Spirit Drivers for the last year and a half. I was part of the pilot program, and then I loved it so much that I rolled straight into the year-long cohort that we've been a part of. We're going to roll into Spirit Drivers 2.0, but I want to share a little bit more about what Spirit Drivers is, how that got started, and maybe kind of dive in a little bit to my own experience with it. So Spirit Drivers, Elise, so it's co-led with Elise Dorset.
Right.
And how did you two come together? How did this idea form? Where was the birth of Spirit Drivers?
So the birth of Spirit Drivers is funny enough, since we're sitting in a place called Loading Dock in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was on one of the first Zoom lunch calls after the pandemic started with a mutual friend of Elise's and mine. And she introduced herself as a coach that was living in Zurich, Switzerland. And she had an idea for using a coaching program for co-working spaces. And I went, co-working spaces? I own a co-working space. It's one of my companies. I want to know more. And so we got together. It was literally two kindred spirits meeting for the first time. And that allowed us to really sort of explore how we wanted to work together and how we might create a program online that would help others using our diverse but very complementary set of skills. And that's how we started. We started to explore a concept that I've really appreciated over a number of years in different contexts called peer engagement networks. Mm-hmm. Peer engagement, I was a part of one in Silicon Valley for a couple of years that I just got a ton out of, and was probably the highlight of my week to go to these meetings. And when I was explaining it to Elise, she thought it would be a valuable format to explore in the coaching context. And that's how we ended up putting together leadership training along with peer engagement, along with individual coaching, along with online coaching, and into the Spirit Drivers Mastermind group.
And that group has been a complete game changer for, I think, a lot of people. I don't, speak for myself too, but as an international community, one of the things that I really love that you brought to the table was not only a co-led mastermind group that had international components, people from all over the world, but the format of having expert speakers. So how did you land on that format? What was, kind of the idea of bringing that into things? And, what was your favorite aspect of bringing the expert speakers in?
Well, in the original focus groups of which you were a part, thank you very much for doing that. One of the things that we discovered was that people were having a hard time adjusting. The pandemic really pulled the rug out from under everyone whether you were ill or had relatives that were ill or friends, or it was just your business changed, everything started to change, and people's leadership skills weren't necessarily adapting as well as they might have because of all this change. So that's how we started thinking about experts. We needed people to come in and give people a sense of hope and a new sense of direction about how to put together their own path forward. We started with experts doing live streams. We used a product called StreamYard, which we were just talking about.
Yep.
And we did about a dozen expert sessions just on StreamYard, where we do a live stream and then capture it, save it all. But the real value of it was when we were talking to other people about their impressions from the videos that we posted and the live streams that we had.
Right.
The expert sessions just seemed to be the natural beginning to a month. So as we outlined what we wanted to present for the entire year in the first cohort that you were very big part of, the idea was, let's pick a topic, find an expert, start with the expert, and then dive in on the topic for the rest of the month. And that's exactly the format that we used very successfully.
Absolutely. And I think that it added a lot of not only accessibility, but diversification to the experience, because we had you and Elise as an outlet and you and Elise as advisors and mentors in the experience, but then having a expert speaker to introduce these, concepts where, one time we were looking at hypnosis therapy, and then we were going through visualization practices, and then we were talking about kindness in business. And I love that format. And I think that, being able to give space for those experts too, I think it's only a part of building networks and allowing that community to thrive there.
Well, it was also really focused on what people needed now.
Yes,
and
that's a good point.
Being able to focus on these experts and their topics, and then really deep dive over the next 3 to 4 weeks every month, and then shift up to another topic and then deep dive again. People just seem to really gravitate to the mastermind and enjoyed every aspect of it, not the least of which was the mastermind component itself, when people got to be on the hot seat, as we call it.
I was there.
You were there a couple of times, several times.
Yes.
And being on the hot seat is a very confidential but powerful way for people to be able to bring up a personal issue, whether it's a business issue, relationship issue, financial issue, or just lost. Getting on the hot seat and having this confidential but very earnest support of everyone else in the group to explore that issue and maybe find a path forward to it or out of it was just super powerful. And it was Elise and I, at the end of every session, would just stare back at each other, because she's in Switzerland.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in Chapel Hill, North
totally
Carolina.
Different time zones, worlds.
Right, two worlds, two diverse sets of expert connections also. So it really worked very well. It was truly a match made in heaven in that first conference call on Zoom. It was almost 2 years ago. Yeah,
I believe it. I believe it. I remember when she just started talking to me about the concept of this, and she's like, "You want to try it out?" I'm like, "I'm going to need this. I'm going to need a tool set to get me through whatever I didn't know was coming at us over the last few years." And I know that it's the first year that you all dove into this, and you've pivoted, we've learned alongside one another. What are, I guess, some of the changes that you and Elise saw in the individuals that participated, and what is some of the feedback that you got?
First of all, there was change in ourselves, because not only did we lead the mastermind group, we ultimately changed in ourselves, because the experts helped our members, but they helped us too.
Sure.
And that was really the more interesting part of it. And as we grew, our members grew, and our focus grew more. I think it was, I would say, serious, intense, not sure exactly, but it became more specific about how we wanted to help. And it also led us to shape the next year going forward.
So that's a good segue. What's next?
Well, this past year was focused on leadership behavior and learning the soft skills of how to lead yourself, lead your family, lead your coworkers, especially remote coworkers. Lord knows we've all had to learn a lot of new skills with remote coworkers.
Right.
This next year is about how to find the path to an extraordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we realized that the power of this was being able to be held accountable by other members in the group, then what's the ultimate goal? And that's to have the most extraordinary life experience that you can, whether or not that's now, or it's a little later, or making plans, or just getting to it. The accountability piece is what we'll add in the next cohort. And it will all focus on how to build a path to an extraordinary life.
I love it. And I can't wait to be a part of that too.
We can't wait for you.
So how can people get a hold of you? And yeah, tell us more.
We have a website, which is spiritdrivers.com. We're available on LinkedIn. We have also on the website, there's a way to book time with either or both of us. And then Gregg at spiritdrivers.com or Elise at spiritdrivers.com will get an email right to us.